Welcome to The Holistic Nurse with your host, Peggy Smith. Peggy will introduce and educate her viewers about the differences between alternative, holistic, and complementary medical therapies. Her goal is to empower the lay medical consumer to learn how to advocate for themselves. So now, please welcome the host of The Holistic Nurse, Peggy Smith.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Holistic Nurse with Peggy Smith. We've been talking in recent weeks programs how to increase holistically your neuropeptides, give you a better advantage in living a successful, healthy life. Today, we're going to have a really exciting, different kind of show. Dr. Bruce Kowalski, our resident past life regressionist, is joining us today, along with an accomplished storyteller, author, uh, singer, all kinds of very talented that she's going to share with us today. Brownell Landrum. We're going to be talking about the science behind wishing. You know, like when you throw the penny in the fountain as you walk by and you hope nobody saw you do it because you think it's foolish that you made a wish when you did it. That's what we're going to be talking about. That's scientifically based. So please, Bruce and Brownell, join me. Welcome. I'm very happy to have you today.
Thank
And
you. Happy to be here.
Pleasure, as always.
so, why don't each of you, one at a time, gives a little background for viewers that haven't met you, Bruce, and the opportunity to introduce yourself and what you do.
Yeah, I've been on more than several interviews with Peggy on a variety of subjects. I am by trade a clinical hypnotherapist and also a past life regression facilitator. I've been in this field for almost 50 years. Yeah, but I think about 48 years.
Who's counting
And
it?
who's counting? And that's what I do.
So, and Brunel, I'm so happy to have you today. Tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and what you're going to share with the viewers today.
Yeah. Well, I am. First of all, I want to make sure everybody knows, like, I'm a storyteller, not a scientist. So, definitely defer to people who are scientists and respect and honor them. I just got interested in the idea of the science of wishing as I was writing a novel. And I'm sure you're going to ask me more about how all that evolved. But that's what kind of led me on this huge exploration to writing my book, The Art and Science of Wishing, and where I quote over 70 different scientists. So I just went completely crazy into looking at the science of wishing, and it all kind of came out of the fact that I was writing a novel.
So, yes, I saw that list of the scientists and practitioners that you were mentioning. I've many of those names have been included in the training that I've had in healthcare. So, one of my favorites was Marty Seligman because uh, he wrote the Art of Authentic Happiness, and
Yes.
I've referred to that and gratitude practices many times in among the shows that we've had. And what I didn't actually realize, a clinical psychologist who was looking at your profile said, she's going to be talking about neuropeptides, and she might not even know that. And we've had several shows recently about how important they are and how we keep them healthy so that we can have a more successful, positive outlook on life. So, where would you like to begin?
Um, well, I guess first I think it might help to give some context of how why Bruce and I are on the same show. Because people might go, okay, well, how does this past life regressionist hypnotherapist doctor fit with this storyteller? And I met Bruce originally when I had written a novel, a trilogy actually, called We Meet Again. That's this epic reincarnation mystery and love story about a famous couple from history who's brought back today to fulfill a prophecy that'll change the world. So I like
We
writing
could
these
use
kinds
him
of.
now.
I'm sorry.
If you could bring your characters to life, we could use somebody like that right now, but
Yeah,
we don't talk politics on this show.
yeah. Well, Bruce and I do go off onto that tangent from time to time. So anyway, that's how I met him. As the kind of the interest in this whole idea of reincarnation and the fact that I like writing these metaphysical stories. And then you're like, okay, how does that kind of, work with this whole world of this person who's writing about science of wishing? And that the thing that does kind of the through line through my books is that I really love opening people's minds and getting them to think differently. And I was told many years ago by someone that I was an explorer. He said, "You're Brownell, you're an explorer. You'll always be an explorer." So I'm always looking for answers and ideas and explanations into all these kinds of things. And so I was writing this kind of metaphysical book that's semi autobiographical about this whimsical world upstairs where wishes, like with wish fairies, and wishes are gathered and sorted and granted. And that led me to have to ask some questions about, well, okay, well, what is a wish? And how is a difference between a wish, a prayer, and a goal? And so that was having me set up this foundation of what is a wish. And like, I love the way you introduced it in terms of tossing a coin into a fountain, or how people think wishes are whimsical, or, not science based. And what I found out was every time you make a wish, you engage over a dozen different sciences. So we can go any direction you want, but I wanted you to know that. And then Bruce and I actually are working together to create a science of wishing. We call it cosmic wishes class, because the whole premise of my theory, if you will, is how to turn a wish into a cosmic wish by adding science. So we've got a class that we're putting together, and that's how Bruce and I kind of was like, oh, well, wait a minute, we need to tell people about what you're doing and how you're teaching people how to turn their wishes into cosmic wishes. So
Yeah, well,
that's framework.
I read your children's book first, the one about cosmic wishes, and one of the first memories that I had was a movie that actually, I guess it came out when my kids were growing up. I'm too old to have it in my childhood, but um, the oh, and I just mentioned the name, like one with the big flying dog. The name just escapes me. I was just talking to somebody about it.
Like Clifford or something. I don't know if I
No, it
know it,
wasn't
but
Clifford, before Clifford. It was. Oh, it'll come to me by the break, I'm sure. Um,
okay.
because the person I mentioned, she know that you're right. It is the same.
Underdog, was it Underdog?
No, this is like a fantasy dog.
Oh,
We'll find it on the break. I'll tell you.
okay. That's okay.
And then, you know how children are so innocent, and all children are just natural wishers. The never ending story. My friend just
Oh,
told
that
me.
one. Oh, okay. Yes, yes, yes.
And that's a
That's a
good one.
beautiful book. Yeah.
That was a good. That's what first came to my mind when I read your children's book, and the children are so innocent; their minds are so open to these things, and maybe somebody just in their own play mentions something to his mother, oh, and the mother says, "Don't be ridiculous." She's not meaning to be mean or anything, but you say, "Don't be ridiculous," or who do you think you are? Enough times the kid grows up, they, okay, I guess I don't share these things anymore, and starts to block out those ideas, unless they're destined to be a creator and things like that. Were you always like this as a child? I have to ask, because I just thought I don't. We don't use scripts on this show; just whatever comes out. Sometimes we say.
Well, I like going with the flow, so I'm okay to go whatever direction you want. Um, I would say always interested, always curious, would probably be the best way to say it. I didn't really start getting into kind of into the what would you call the metaphysical or something until I was an adult, young adult, but until that really. But so, but I think all kids on some level love wishes and wishing. Love
Well,
making
and
those.
we start off with their first birthday, blow out the candle and make a wish,
That's right.
and sometimes the parents even worry if they're struggling financially. Well, what if they wish something I can't create for them? Um, and and then there's the collective wishes sometimes where everybody's wishing that the kid doesn't wish what what he really wants, and that kind of we all get on the same vibe. Maybe he'll actually wish what we're hoping he wishes for because that's what we got him. That kind of thing.
Oh, right, right, right. Well, in fact, I have a really lovely story within my story about that, about these three boys. It's because the novel I was writing is called A Love Story to the Universe. And in it, I have a story of what I call the three Justins. And I have one Justin, they're all three wishing for a bike, but one is wealthy and wishing for the fanciest bike you can get, right? Whatever the latest model is. And one of them is kind of middle, and wishes for for a bike. And then one doesn't have the money, right? But the fun thing about that was the one that was the wealthiest and who could wish for the fanciest bike wasn't the happiest because he got the fanciest bike and then the boy across the street got a fancier one. So he didn't feel so special anymore, right? The middle one, he got to his why because getting behind the why of the wish was important. And the middle class one, he wanted it so he could go and earn some extra money and ride his bike to another neighborhood and do some lawn work for a neighbor. And then that, so it didn't have to be the fanciest bike. He had a purpose for it. And then the one with the less money actually ended up wishing for a bike. The parents couldn't afford it, but he ended up having a neighbor who found a bike that needed to be fixed up, and they actually built a lifelong friendship by refurbishing that bike and giving him a bike that way. So
And that lifelong lessons too there. I'm sure that
that's
child went
right.
through it.
Who had the best wish? Who had the best outcome? I'll leave that up to people to decide, but it does give you that was important for me in exploring this is all the nuance of it. So
And may I ask what part of the country you're from? And
well, that's always the question of the hour. Right now, I'm in Georgia. I lived in Georgia for a long time, and then I moved to Colorado for a long time. Then I moved overseas and went a bunch of places, and now I'm still trying to figure out where I'm going to go.
well, I was an Army brat, and I actually was in Atlanta for my high school years,
Oh, wow.
south of Atlanta. Yeah. So, Bruce, tell us how you're contributing to these new concepts, and you always have some good stories to go to. And
Well, my part is to reinforce what we're going to cover each week during the class. There'll be certain principles discussed, certain exercises discussed, and towards the end of the class, I'll be doing a guided meditation. Well, for practical purposes, a hypnotherapy session to reinforce what was covered during the course of that particular week, so that it is acted upon by the person, one of the participants in the class, automatically. And it's
okay,
really
and I mean,
it's
by
fun.
definition, I guess we know that like energy attracts, and things like that. So are we kind of discussing topics that we work with all the time, or do you have with new names, or you just opening people's eyes and showing them what their superpowers are that they've subdued over all these years growing up? Adulting has a way of knocking out a lot of superpowers for some people.
Brownell. That's
Well,
Or maybe
I
it's
think,
reality. Maybe it's not adulting. Maybe.
yeah.
yeah.
Well, the way the course is designed is that every week it gets into a different area of the science. So how Bruce will handle each week will differ, right? The first week is about the three selves, whether you want to call it mind, body, spirit, or conscious, subconscious, superconscious, right? So that particular meditation will be tapping into those three selves to make sure all are aligned for that wish, if that makes sense, right? And then there's a week of that. This is the one I think you were teasing at the beginning. There's a week on brain science, right? So we get into neuroplasticity, we get into the RAS, the reticular activating system, and the default mode network. And so that'll be a different kind of meditation, which will trigger people and give people the kind of the hypnotic suggestion, if you will, to train their brain to look for solutions to help them with their wish, if that makes sense. So each one's going to be a little bit different depending on the science we're going to cover.
Okay.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Bruce. You started to
I
say
what I
something.
was saying is Brownell's approach to me is the missing link in all of this. From looking at it from a scientific standpoint, it was briefly broached in some of the books on manifestation and law of attraction that were popular some years ago, like The Secret. What was her name? Rhonda Byrne?
Yes.
Uh,
You know what, Bruce? I'm going to just stop you right here. We're going to pick this up at the beginning of the next
okay,
break. After the
got it.
break. Thank you.
Right, yeah.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Hi, welcome back to the Holistic Nurse with Peggy Smith, and I have guest Dr. Bruce Kowalski and Brownell Landrum. We're talking about the art and science of wishing and how we can actually achieve our goals and manifest what we used to think were foolish dreams. That some parents even taught you don't have any right to even think of those things. You just have to be able to graduate and make money.
Yeah, well, and I think that's what gets into the difference is, and where this takes it to the next level is that it does bring in the science. So there are different aspects of this whole process in terms of, like, for example, the difference between a wish, a prayer, and a goal is a good place to
I
kind of
like that.
start. Yeah. A goal is something that's in your control. Usually it's like you can set a plan, you can make it happen, you can make a list of things. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to, get this advanced degree, whatever that is. And a prayer is usually for the things outside of your control. So you just wish to a higher power or send a message to a higher power, please make this happen. And
Like
the thing
those
that I
Hail
love,
Mary passes on the football field.
yeah, exactly. Um, and the wish is so beautiful because it's the combination. It kind of includes both. And it takes it to another level when you add the science and make it what I call a cosmic wish. So, for example, somebody could come to me and say, okay, I've got a goal of losing 10 pounds. And what I do with our process is we turn that into a cosmic wish by adding science. And when you're adding science, yes, you can sit there and have a list of 10 things, but that's not going to drive you when you're talking about like the neuroscience of it, like you were talking about, Peggy. It's not
Yes.
going to really get you very excited, right? Lose 10 pounds, that's not very exciting for your subconscious. But if you say that, oh, well, I want to feel good in my clothes and I wish to work with my body and align with my body to find foods that we love to eat that make us feel good, then you're going to have a lot more success on that path and you're going to be looking forward to it. And then with
Yeah.
neuroplasticity, if you make that wish every day, then you're training your brain to look for the solution versus trying to force yourself into doing something that might be against, some other part of your body. My best analogy I use for that is like, imagine you're walking your dog and the dog runs off. Most people will yell at the dog or chase the dog. But what if instead you go, hey, it's fun over here, let's go this way? The dog is going to go right where you want to go.
Oh, where do
So
you get a dog like that?
well, when you get excited, the dog wants to go where it's fun, right? The dog wants to go that direction. So that's our bodies are the same way. So if we make it fun, we make it aligned with what our bodies want, body/subconscious, because it's the same thing. That's an example of how turning that into a wish makes it much more exciting and much more aligned with something that's going to last with you longer term. Does that make sense?
And
Yeah.
I was going to say it's very similar to what I do as a hypnotherapist during the clinical interview. In the clinical interview, before I do any hypnosis, um, I do thorough history taking, but more important is I look at their particular motivation for wanting to achieve a certain thing. For instance, we were talking about losing weight. What's in it for you? Is it to look better, to feel better? If they're to be able to play with, if they're older, to be able to play with the grandkids and keep up with the grandkids. And so there's I feel is very similar to what I do as a hypnotherapist, and in certain respects.
Yeah, and in our class, there's 2 whole weeks on motivation because that's so important, right?
It is, but I think, again, I mean, I've had a lot of careers besides 50 years of nursing in my life. I've been through the sales and the business angles and, the science. I've been a research chemist and all. And what I've learned doing more of the brain science and a lot of the holistic things on this show is that it's a matter of really, if you, part of that has to be able to learn to love yourself. You just can't, it's, to me, it seems not practical just to wish something, but while you're finding out what motivates them, you might have to teach somebody that it's okay to want something for yourself. That's a big barrier for some people.
Well,
Um,
that's one of the most important aspects of what I do in hypnotherapy, particularly when it comes to, let's say, smoking cessation. Why do you want to stop smoking? I say, oh, because my wife wants me to. That's the worst thing that you want to hear from someone. It has to come from within you. You have to want it.
and the cost of cigarettes nowadays, it seems to be the people's most motivation.
That's a good
People,
motivation.
you know,
That's right.
but we all heard about the inner child, I guess, in our 60s and 70s, and I kind of thought about that when I was reading through some of, your works and all. And a lot of the scientists that you referenced are actually resources that I've used to enhance some of the programs because I do a lot of work on quantum physics principles and things like that. So I knew
Yeah.
a lot of those names. I've read a lot of their work. Um, and I even had a thought once was that it's this morning I was talking to somebody. It seems like wishing you almost, first of all, I like the idea that now we can be a grown up and go back to wishing, because you still have when you're almost a senior, you don't want to have regrets when you enter that last chapter, but you there's wishes, gee, I wish I could have done this, or you know, and I think I discovered that if I take responsibility for the choices I made, even if it didn't feel like my choices in the past, it's a lot easier to give myself permission to wish. And there's no time frame. It doesn't take a lifetime to be happy. You can turn the moment into happy and then add moments on top of moments.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how many weeks will this course be?
It's 8 weeks because, and you probably know this as well. And of course, it depends on which research source you use. I have 400 research attributions in my book. So, there's a lot of them. And, if anybody, and you included, of course, anybody has more ideas or more research they want to give me, I'm always open to learning more. So just to make that clear. But depending on which source, 8 weeks is generally the number for neuroplasticity. So that's why it's an 8 week course, right? Is if you're making the same wish every day and the beautiful thing about wishing, like I said, it engages over a dozen sciences every time you make a wish. One of them is anthropology, and that is the idea of a ritual. So and that's why you're talking about blowing out candles on a birthday cake. That's a ritual that goes back, very, very far. And then you're talking about collective wishing, that goes back to the beginning of mankind. Is one of the key drivers of survival was wishing together, you know, and you throwing in things like where is the world going and issues like that. I really think that could be the solution for where we need to go is we need to start doing some more collective wishing because collective wishing was such a big driver for survival. So the idea of a ritual that you're doing every day, something that's reminding you to make your wish and that you're repeating your wish. And then we talk about the 3 Ps of wishing and making sure you're making them in a certain way, which from reading the children's book, because it's all about
Right.
the 3 Ps, right? And so, but understanding that there is science and there's ritual, and that following these things are what helps it get so much stronger and so much more like, wait a minute, this isn't even like The Secret or manifesting, because so much of that is kind of like expects it to be, oh, you wanted it, so poof, it's going to happen. And this is like, no, this is a process using your brain, using your psychology, using, like I said, neuroscience, quantum physics, all of those things to kind of give you that extra boost.
We just had a show last week talking about enhancing the neuropeptides, how important rituals were in just your daily health practice, because it sets up a consistency. When you're a child, the children that have reasonably structured childhoods seem to do better or don't have to work as hard at achieving things. Um, their minds are more open, and they're just their curiosity. When you have the 2-year-old, well, why? But why? But why? And finally, the parent says, "Because I said so." And I go play, and the child wasn't ready to go play. It's like I never had a Barbie house when I was growing up, but my mother showed me how to get a cardboard box and a sewing machine. We made our own curtains. We made our own furniture, and it's like the boy refurbishing the bike. I learned skills that I use later with my own kids and everything, and the sense of accomplishment. It wasn't just take out. So I protected that dollhouse. I built other dollhouses as the years grow up as an adult.
That's
Um,
lovely.
so there's and what I found with the rituals, many times, especially people that were raised in very structured religions, they get to adulthood, and that's the first thing they're going to throw out of their life. They're blaming their unhappiness because of all that structure. And then when you find times that you're struggling, you might get drawn back, whether it's the music that you find comfort, or sometimes it's the structure. There's comfort in structure, and you realize as an adult. Uh, I mean, I was sure, because I ended up being raised in a Catholic school environment, going to a Catholic college in Alabama. My first week in college, we all got together. We were going to go find the ideal religion. We agreed we should have a religion, but we didn't think it should be the one that we were raised in. So we spent a month each week going to different churches and all, and we were horrified that certain, Southern religions like had to stay all day on Sunday plus Wednesday nights, and we came back to the Catholic Church. We said, "Gosh, in 20 minutes we can do what they're doing in 20 hours." That's the innocent young teenager who thinks they know it
In
all.
other words, cut to the quick, right?
Yeah.
And it's like clipping your college courses. We wanted to clip religion too. We were raised it was important, but we thought, well, we can clip it like we clip our college courses.
Mhm.
Um, so I think as we get to an older age, and especially when you have grandparents, you get reminded of how innocent those minds are. Uh, and you want to try to foster that, because there's part of you that feels almost regret that you had to smother your innocence, and you really don't. When you're sitting
Right.
down building blocks or having a imaginary tea party, with your granddaughter, and you think, I can't tell her I feel stupid holding an empty cup. But you just tell her it's the best cupcake she ever ate, and we're holding an imaginary cupcake and drinking the imaginary tea. um, so, I think it's something we do need to educate people on. We're going to take another brief break. In the next section, maybe you can be a little more specific, or, go with
Happy
whatever
to.
you'd like to share.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back to the art and science of wishing and everything that Dr. Bruce and Brownell Landrum are going to continue telling us about. We do it so naturally, or we work hard at subduing that urge. So tell us what we can do to make it part of our lives.
Yeah, well, I want to circle back to where you were about the religion thing, because I think that's also a really important aspect. And that is one of the other things that I love about wishing is that it can, as I said, it can encompass the goal setting. It can also encompass the religious or spiritual. So that you can be super religious and still understand and accept the idea of wishing, and you can be spiritual, metaphysical, not religious, and be into it, and you can be none of those things and just and be a skeptic, or just pure science person, and it still can be this whole idea about the scientific wishing and the cosmic wishing, can also be something you can gravitate to because you can look at the science of it. So I call it cosmic collaboration, when you know that there's something outside of you that's assisting, if you will. And if you're like you mentioned, the quantum physics, it could be quantum physics. It could be, some aspect that we don't necessarily understand. For example, we could be setting ourselves saying, okay, I want to look for this, I'm going to look for a solution to my wish. I'm making the wish every day. And then you're training your brain to look for those solutions. And all of a sudden, you can call them synchronicities. Poof, this pops up and this pops up and this opportunity and this answer and this solution, right? So you can use Carl Jung and call it synchronicity. You can use neuroscience and call it the reticular activating system, or you can go into quantum physics and ask some of that, or you can use a spiritual framework and say, I was guided to find that answer. The explanation doesn't really matter. It still leads you to the same place, if that makes sense.
Well, I think if you're training your mind, actually, if you're just practicing mindfulness and you're aware of what's going around, so much what we miss in the day to day is because we're not mindful. We're living in the past or the future, worried about the future instead of the present. But it's like when you buy a new car, a particular color maybe. All of a sudden, when you're driving down the road, you notice all the cars just like the one you just bought because you have a mindful awareness of that.
That's what the
Um,
reticular activating system is, as you probably know, right? It's when you start seeing that same car everywhere. And then there's the default mode network that opens up when we make a wish. That is that part of us that our brain that turns off when one part turns off, another part turns on, that helps us look for answers. Like, oh, you can't remember that word, but then you're taking a shower and all of a sudden the answer comes to you, right? That's that part of your brain.
right.
So it's an important aspect, especially as a creative person and as a writer, is knowing how to tap into that particular part of our brain, because that's where a lot of that inspiration comes from. So those are, and you can call it woo woo or you can call it science. It doesn't matter to me.
Well, I know that the human mind basically wants to please, and Bruce said we're both hypnotists. We've learned that in our practice over the years, and sometimes even the criticism that skeptics might be thinking in Bruce's specialty is that the mind just wants to please so badly. There's no way to prove what he's really saying, and if it's real, we do see evidence. Shortly after, while we're being aware of the whole phenomenon. But because the mind wants to please, if you just really had a baseline, have to tell your mind it's okay to look for opportunities. Like maybe you want to go to get accepted by a particular job or a school or something, and you don't quite know what to do, but you're thinking about it. You start thinking of ideas that maybe will help you get there soon, and on the right track. You make choices personally that you don't even think are related to what your goal was or your dream, your wish, and all of a sudden it's getting easier to get closer to that goal.
That's right. I know Bruce knows that.
Yeah, that's very, very, very true. I mean, I do that. I do that in my own life at times. That you automatically find yourself getting closer to that, where we think it's automatic. But I'm sure there are reasons for that. There are scientific reasons for that. But one of the things that really uh, that, that really interests me is this. And Peggy and I believe we did do a show on on quantum physics, did we not?
Yes, uh-huh.
So I'm going to ask Brownell to address that a little more here. How does quantum physics, specifically, there's a lot of areas in quantum physics. We can talk
There,
about, oh my God, we can talk about string theory. We can talk about something called quantum foam. Uh, entanglement is another
right?
one.
On
So,
locality. Yeah.
yeah, non-locality. So I guess all of these merge together. But where do you feel that individually they have a part in wish making?
Let me give you an example because I think y'all will have fun with this particular scenario. And as the storyteller in me, I'm going to turn it into that.
Sure.
Um, Imagine you're driving home, from work or wherever, and you have this image in your mind of a blue balloon. And
Mm.
then, there's a blue balloon in your driveway. You just get this image in your mind. And you drive home, and guess what? There's a blue balloon in your driveway. What got it there? And I'll give you a trick and tell you, or it's not really a trick, but in my book, I come up with three answers, and now I've got over a dozen. So there are all kinds of explanations of that, of how that blue balloon could be there.
Yeah, so the question becomes, did you a number of different answers to that? The
Yeah,
balloon was always there, not always there, but has been there for a long time, and you just noticed it because of the particular activator. Or there is the possibility, I don't know how remote the possibility, that we create our create our own life, create our own world, that we somehow created that blue balloon,
right. You manifested it, right? Right.
manifested it.
What else? What are the reasons, Peggy? Can you come up with any?
Well, I'm thinking, well, the example you gave transferred my mind to the idea of cardinals visiting. And sometimes people, after they've lost somebody, it's either hummingbirds, butterflies, or cardinals. Seems like since my husband passed, almost daily, wherever I'm at, a cardinal comes up on my car, right next to me, on close enough. One came on my arm recently. Um, and
Wow.
it made me wonder, is it because I'm manifesting that, always looking for that, and but they're not like figments of my imagination. These real animals sitting on my arm, or on my mirror in
Right.
the car.
Hmm.
That's a
Um,
great example.
and
Yeah.
it makes me wonder too with the balloon, what does that balloon represent?
That's
It's
exactly right.
the
That's a
balloon
really
is
good
probably
one,
not.
right?
Yeah,
Is it symbolism? It's like in a dream, you get a symbol, and then you look up in your
right,
dream and toss this book, and then all of a sudden it says, "Oh, well, blue means this, and balloons mean this, and this is a message for you to look out for." And then the question, of course, I think is what you're kind of hinting on is, well, where would that message be coming from? Right?
Hmm.
Is that message coming from the beyond, from somebody who's passed on, or is that a message from your subconscious, or is that a message from, some sort of spiritual realm? So yeah, so that can kind of goes into that, right? Another one could be precognitive. You got a vision ahead of time, or if you're going to get into the weird quantum physics stuff, like the predictive processing and the ability to see something a few seconds before it actually happens, like your ability to kind of peek into the
right,
future. So, this is where the ideas of the quantum physics kind of have some fun because you can look at this example and go, wow, this could be an example. You could be a glitch in the matrix if you're into that, right? You could be
right,
you poofed over to a parallel world that had the blue balloon all the time. The whole was already there. It could be your subconscious saw the balloon, but your conscious mind was too busy focusing on something else And so it was your subconscious. But then again, why was the subconscious telling you to look for the blue balloon?
And I think, the different ways that people learn and process things, I guess because of my analytical background, even, of course, we use a lot of analytical skills assessing patients, but uh, the first thing I thought with the balloon is, well, what would the blue balloon represent? And then I would know where it came from. And, I want those kind of answers. I'm not happy to say, oh, what a nice, beautiful balloon. Yeah.
And
I
that's
envy people that
beautiful,
actually
right?
could do that. They just take it for what it is, and why do you need to know what it represents? Just enjoy the blue balloon. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Um,
that's also what kind of the whole tie-in to what I was talking about as far as skeptics and inviting skeptics is bring the skeptics in and let them test it and let them ask those questions because they won't take well enough alone saying, well, I know it was this or this. They're going to keep pushing the envelope on asking the questions, and that's
That's
the gift.
true because there are enough different sciences involved in this that even the hardiest skeptic is going to find one that appeals to them, a
Right.
certain science that appeals to them in relation to wisdom.
a lot
But
of times when I've been at crossroads in my life, maybe trying to change a behavior or habit or something, I see this a lot in hypnosis. Sometimes I wonder, does it matter why we were doing it to begin with? Why can't we just accept the fact that we're going to change now and this is what we're doing going forward?
well, that
Uh,
that's that's the old battle between two different types of therapy. Freudian-oriented psychoanalysis
right.
or behavior modification. Right?
Right. And yeah, and for me, my answer always is if I still have something to learn, I'm going to still harp on the past. If I don't, then how can I get rid of that thing? Because it could be like I think you were saying, is that your brain is programmed to keep remembering harping on this thing and you don't need it anymore. You can let it go, right? You just reprogram your brain, your neuroplasticity, and think about the positive. Because that's one of the key components of this is the three P's that your wishes should be peaceful, positive, and purposeful. And and that's how you make the wish as well as what you're wishing for. And the positive one is a really important aspect, Peggy, because it's saying you're wishing towards something and not away. So in other words, I wish I'd stop smoking. That doesn't get you as much as I wish to be completely healthy and have good lungs and healing lungs and that kind of thing, right? So you're when
Right.
you're
Yeah.
moving forward, it's a lot better than moving away from.
Hmm.
So I agree with that. And, many times I think I've come like, well, back when I first joined Facebook, I don't know how many years that's been around now, but in the original questions, what's your Facebook motto going to be? I had no idea, just out of the blue. I wrote down, life is a series of learning experiences.
Ah, I love
And then, like, maybe 5 or 10 years later, I say, that really is my motto, but I never
it.
put it in words like that. And it's something that I should have, if something went wrong, said, well, I guess it's a learning experience. But back when that came out of my mind out of nowhere, it obviously had a place to come from that I just wasn't aware of.
Right, right. There's also a principle I talk about in the book about what I call reverse optimism. Is that when you can look back at things and going, oh, well, that's why that had to happen for that to happen for that to happen to get me to where I am now, right? And so you may look back at a bad experience, a so-called bad experience, and you go, yeah, but if that hadn't happened, it wouldn't have led me where I am. And that's a really important psychological component to knowing, okay, Albert Bandura, I'm sure you know him, he would call that self-efficacy when wait a minute, I can make the best of a bad situation and actually turn it into something good, so that when you're looking at the four responses to a wish and you get maybe a no answer, it actually could turn into something that's better than a yes answer.
Yeah, this has actually been very enlightening. I mean, I can't wait to see the rest. I think we're running out of time. Can you tell us the best way to reach you guys? Because oh, are we taking a break first? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm not following the directions really well. Um, okay, we're going to take a break and then come back for just to tell people how to reach you and how to get in contact with you. We'll be right back.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like it was almost instant, like I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Hi, it's been a pleasure having the show today, a holistic nurse on the art and science of making wishes. And I'm going to have our guests tell us, a closing message and how we can get in touch with them. Go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to tell you, I was starting to tell you is that I have a new show on YouTube and all the podcast channels called Cosmic Wishes. And what we do in the show is the guests come in with their wish, and then we draw from. I have over 200 science cards, so we'll draw a science card and we'll apply that science to their wish. And then I have over 200 activity cards, and we draw an activity card and apply that to their wish. So it's a ton of fun, and so I wanted to invite people to see this because you get to see things like, and they might bring in what I call a whimsical wish, and then it gets into these really deep topics. Like somebody said, "Well, since a little kid, I wish to be able to use the Force, like in Star Wars," and it really got really interesting. And you think it's silly. So anyway, that's what I wanted to invite people. Look for Cosmic Wishes is the name of that show, or just look me up, Brownell Landrum. I'm the only Brownell Landrum in the world, so it's pretty easy to find me, kind of hard to hide. And then Bruce and I are going to be doing a class soon. So looking forward to seeing who wants to sign up for that. And if you want to ever teach other people how to do it, that's what the class is for as well, as the first step of doing it.
Gee.
Okay. Bruce, tell us about the best way to reach you. And
It's either through my website, which is Dr. Kowalski, that's drkaloski.com, or email me, drkowalski@gmail.com.
okay. And I'm wishing now that, we had a lot more time to talk more about this, but
Yeah,
maybe
we
we
barely
can
scratched it.
another show in the future. Yeah, the books are really great. I'm already on my fourth one now. I did take that speed reading course 50 years ago. A lot of information though, and a lot of food for thought. And that's how you know you're still alive on the right side of the dirt, because your mind is still thinking and moving forward. So it's been a pleasure having both of you. Thank you very much for joining me on this Saturday, and we will definitely connect in the near future. Have
Sounds
a great
great.
week,
Thank you.
everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
This has been The Holistic Nurse with host Peggy Smith. Tune in each week where you're encouraged to send in questions and receive private responses and suggestions if appropriate. Here's Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern.